Hey, that's pretty bad. There was a lot of interesting stuff in this game, obviously, but the most notable thing is that Pascal Siakam, he strained his right groin. For anybody who was wondering, has this happened to him before? What was the timeline like? Yes. In his first All NBA season, 2019-20, he missed 11 games and was on rest technically for 23 days and was affected to some degree once he came back. That was the last time he strained his right groin. He also had like a little baby groin thing in the Tampa season, but not much attention has been paid to that. Mostly people worried about the labrum at that point in time. This is the Raptors Reaction Podcast. I'm your host, Samson Folk. The Raptors lose this game to the Dallas Mavericks. And yes, most notably is that Pascal is injured. Who knows if Fred is coming back next game, but they lose 111 to 110. This was also Scottie's first triple-double, which is, of course, of note. Congratulations to him. This was also OG Anunoby. I was actually the first one to pick up on it, which was cool on Twitter, but he's the first Raptors player to ever do 3 straight games of 5 or more steals. And so that's another record for him after he set the record for the first guy on the Raptors to do back-to-back games of 5 steals twice. Kind of a mouthful, that one. Man, this one stinks, and it's fun to take away from this game that the Raptors kind of figured out how they wanted to defend Luka, and despite Scottie, that 3 that Luka hit at the end, yes, you know, OG got called for that foul. It was really nice to see them find how they wanted to defend Luka, and with some more of that blitzing and trapping, they were pretty good at getting back and rotating behind that. And yes, there's some bad shooting from the Mavericks. Some 3 offensive fouls on 3 straight possessions were called against them. Miraculously, they had some travels, but that's the Raptors speeding role players up and putting them in uncomfortable positions. That was nice to see, but the start of this game, they really they struggled against Luka. Let's see, 35 points, 8 boards, 6 assists for Luka on 10 of 15 shooting, 3 of 6 from 3, and he went 12 of 14 from the line. He has had his struggles historically from the line, and 12 of 14 is just a lot better than we can typically expect from Luka Doncic. Let's peek at this. What's he usually shooting from the free throw line? 77% after this game. Historically, he's sitting around like 74. 12 for 14 is very, very strong. The Raptors, man. Yeah, it's hard not to feel, what's the term, morose, maybe? I'm certain it's like morose or something close to that. And sullen, perhaps, Pascal was playing like a top 10 player, and he looked primed to keep on doing so that the other guys who are playing like top 10, some of those guys filter out, and he looks like he's kind of hanging around the top 5. He's been so impressive on all aspects of the floor. He was tonight. The Mavericks in that first half were geared against Pascal, stopping him, getting the ball out of his hands, or trying to contain him by shading heavily. And at first, he was finding the guys for passes out, finding them for shots. Shots didn't drop. So Pascal went to his mid-range bag, went to that isolation bag, even when they were shading, gapping, playing that type of defense, and still getting to his spots. He still leaves this game with like a pretty good stat line. I think 18, 7, and 6. Yeah, man. Yeah, but an injury. Tough one to take. That's disappointing. With Fred, we always knew it was a little thing. Yes, he's been sitting out for 3 games, but Pascal, given what we know about the history of it, that's a bit of a bother. I'm going to leave that though. Okay, so Pascal, he's injured. For how long, we don't know. We'll have news about that in the coming days, but the man is injured. The game, though, evidenced, I'll give you some numbers. 2 points for Reggie Bullock, 9 for Dwight Powell, 11 for Dorian Finney-Smith, 6 for Tim Hardaway Jr., 2 for Maxi Kleba, 7 for Josh Green, 5 for Javale McGee, by the way. That's the name I'm butchering. Anyway, they didn't impact the game a ton, and especially Dwight Powell. He got 2 rebounds. They were big ones at the end. He was pressuring at the end, but my goodness, dude, the Raptors did a pretty good job of really keeping those guys under wraps. It was the point of attack defense against Spencer Dinwiddie and Luka Doncic that had a lot of success. And I don't want to be too hard on Scottie because Scottie, his second half defense on Luka, I thought was quite good. The compete level was much better. He was better at kind of slinking around screens or just flat out switching and containing the big, getting in lane so a pocket pass wasn't there. The tags on the back end got better as the game progressed, so those lobs weren't there for Luka. The Raptors defense as a whole did a much better job of kind of containing what Luka wanted to do. And that made Luka resort at that point in time to a little bit of jump shot making, which he was capable of doing. Unfortunately, that late three, that was a big one. The shimmy, pump, swivel shimmy that he had on Precious Achua, where Precious, the defense was so good, it just didn't matter because Luka shot the ball 37 feet in the air and it dropped right into the bucket. It's just sometimes shots are going to be made and sometimes cuts are going to be made. Dorian Finney-Smith with that late slam when the Raptors are playing trapping when Luka comes across half court. They bring that pressure too. Like three-quarter court press, then you bring that pressure. Sometimes you are going to have breakdowns, but the Raptors, for the most part, I think should be pretty happy. Like 15 points in the fourth quarter for the Mavericks. And that was largely because of Precious, Boucher, Scottie, OG. It's a really, really great, those four core guys playing defense. Otto also deserves a lot of credit for kind of subbing in at the end there too. And Gary as well. Those six guys in the fourth quarter, meaningful defense for certain. And when like Chris Boucher finishes with 17 points, 9 boards, Precious finishes with 15 and 8. Those guys every game are going to have a significant amount of impact. And this game where Luka's going to get downhill, you have to either switch or play really impressive drop or hedge. Koloko, he played like 12 minutes in this game. Not good in this one. And the Raptors tried to make up for that a little bit by having him drop out of these actions and then go to next rotation. So if you can picture a next rotation in your mind, imagine Luka has the ball above the break. You're guarding, a pick and roll action. Luka starts coming downhill. The guy who was guarding him is behind the ball. What happens then? The guy who is guarding Luka is going to shoot out to the other guy above the break. And whoever was guarding the other guy above the break is going to slide over and switch on to Luka. It's a switch from one pass over. And the guy who was guarding Luka is going to shoot to one pass over. That's the type of switch it is. And then that means that they can keep Koloko dropped low during all of that, as long as they don't fear the pick and pop, which with Powell they didn't really tonight, and that made sense, I think, because Powell wasn't killing them from downtown, and that wasn't something that Dallas was even trying to make happen. Really, Powell didn't attempt any threes in this game, so that made sense. Although some of the nexting, it just wasn't done well, and it led to breakdowns and stuff like that. And even Spencer Dinwiddie, it wasn't just Luka, but Spence as well, when that ball came to rest, was still able to, a lot of the time, get to the places he wanted to on the court. That's kind of his whole bag, right? Is that Spence, he's not really good at keeping advantage going, making quick decisions on the ball, like we've seen from maybe Donovan Mitchell as a 2 guard, as a secondary guard, even though Donovan has definitely leaped Garland at this point in time. But anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. Spence, the ball is going to come to rest. He's not going to give you those advantages that way, but he can create his own. And he did against quite a few different defenders in this one. Man, it's hard to walk away from this game thinking of anything other than how good the Raptors defense looked at the end, which it did. But also we have to keep in mind that, yes, the Raptors defense struggled immensely at the start, and it took them too long to get into the swing of things. And this was a game where Koloko started. People who listen to this podcast, you've heard me after each game say, a little bit wary of the Koloko minutes. It was a good game against San Antonio. The lack of shooting was a big deal. But I was very happy in this game to see Achua 26 minutes, Boucher nearly 30 minutes. That's important. I'm glad they pulled the lever. And even that might have been a little bit late because Koloko struggled from the jump. And maybe you wanted to get some of those reps against a guy like Luka. Who knows? But Koloko is 150 days younger than Achua. You could make the case that Achua needs reps as much as Koloko does if you wanted to. Banton played in this game, Thad in this game, but just quick little things. Otto played 20 minutes. I do want to kind of focus in on Otto. Really great defensive decision making. He didn't pop off in an incredible way offensively. He had 2 threes, and the one he missed, it nearly bounced its way in, so that was nice to see. But we were kind of starting to see the beginning of it against San Antonio. There were some heady defensive plays, but the rotations defensively in this one really, really crisp. And some of those impromptu doubles when the guy turns his back and you go over there and you blitz them like, hey, you pop up. They might lose their pivot. They might have to use an escape dribble and try and throw up lob a pass over the top of you, whatever. He was really great at those in this game. His 2 steals, they kind of echo that sentiment. And yeah, the most attention, Scottie kind of working his way into the middle of the Mavericks defense down the stretch there. The offensive rebounding was a super big deal. That's how the Raptors stayed in this game. Second chance points. That brought them back into it. Some shot making, of course, but Scottie down the stretch was phenomenal. OG, 27 points, 7 boards, 5 steals in this one. He was the guy who kept them afloat. Pascal, obviously, to some degree early on, but OG with 27 in this game. Not only getting it off of, we've talked about it ad nauseum, but a guy who is able to take defense, turn it into offense. When you get, was it like 16 steals in 3 games? A pretty big deal. It's a lot of steals. I think Blake had said that they had that Anunoby has 28 through his first now 9 games, so averaging over 3 steals a game. He's going to turn some of that into offense. But in the half court, he was able to create, a fair bit for himself as well. And he hit his catch and shoot threes, 4 of 6 from downtown. Scottie was 1 for 6. Gary was 1 for 7. Gary's offensive decision making in this game was putrid. And I understand why he may have been pressing, but he was pressing before things were kind of gnarly for the Raptors, before the half court offense slowed down. He was taking shots out of the rhythm of the game. 17 seconds on the shot clock, pull up 3. Guess what happens coming back down the other way after you miss? A 3 for the Mavericks. It's not the best. And if this was a game where he was on a heater, then yeah, maybe it works out. But this is a game where he 1 for 7 from 3, 3 of 12 from the field, no rebounds, no assists, and 1 steal. And it's just tough to stomach that type of performance since it's not just missing shots, but it's also forcing it a little bit when you could keep moving the ball. And a guy like Boucher, a guy like Precious, I mean, he missed 2 threes, he airballed 1, but this was a guy who, for the most part, let the game come to him, and that's even including some isolations. That worked out well. Well, I guess it was a middling return on those, but it's a better offensive process than some other things we saw tonight. So, I mean, this game was just from start to finish, we saw so many different versions of this Raptors team. And this also serves as a decent reminder, I think. You need Fred. And the Raptors, as I said after San Antonio game in that piece that I wrote, well, I said it was really fast game. I went and looked at the numbers afterwards. It was the most transition any team has played of any game so far this season. The Raptors can't sustain that. And Dallas plays slow. You get into the half court, you have to be able to create. We saw the limitations of that for the Raptors tonight. Severe limitations in that regard. And especially a guy like Josh Green getting out and running, some of the turnovers and stuff like that, even just any form of transition offense for the Mavericks or pseudo transition, live rebound, push, that kind of stuff, which they do less than other teams, admittedly. But, the Raptors, the more shots you make, the more the other team has to take it out of their own bucket, the more set, defenses you get that you make the other team have to engage with. And, there's no cross matching that you don't like. There's nothing that goes on there. And Fred, when he's healthy, when he's back, is going to be a huge help in games like this. Obviously, in the Spurs game, in the Atlanta game, the Raptors get to play all this transition and they go buck wild, and Fred doesn't need to be out there. Of course not. They're playing this brand and it's working. They've overwhelmed the teams, but, and not that Fred can't fit into that, by the way, but Fred fits in so well to a game like this where he would have been a tremendous help. And in the half court offense, I just can't imagine how much easier it might have been to keep up with that stuff. And also as like a tagger in the pick and roll, he's pretty good. Those dig down stuff like that. Maybe it wouldn't have mattered as much because Luka is less reliant on the bounce pass, the pocket pass. He likes to go airborne for the lobs a lot more. Powell's pretty good at going up and getting it, but it's just for other heavy pick and roll teams. Fred as a tag guy is pretty good as well. And obviously we saw him get cooked against Maxey at the point of attack, but he's still pretty good guard defender in this league. Something of note. But yeah, man, I'm gonna hang my hat there. I think the Reggie Evans Award, I'm giving it to Scottie. It's even though the Raptors did some peel switching in the first half and Scottie moving quickly or slowly off the ball to the corner, that rotation. Sometimes it looked very lackadaisical. And yeah, like that's of note, obviously. But yeah, the compete level from Scottie that increased and ratcheted up throughout the game, that was well worth the price of admission, I would think. So yeah, it's of note, and I thought his compete level ended up in a really really strong place, and he was one of the major drivers down the stretch, if not the major driver. So Reggie Evans Award to Scottie. The top quick reaction comment is from Robin. Quote, start of the third, we got the Tony Brothers Classic, putting 3 quick fouls on OG, even though his positioning on a couple of the calls was questionable. He's pulled this for years to ease the aggressiveness of an impact player. Still love the fight from our guys. Fun game. End quote. Um, yeah, OG had a couple fouls that were tough. Those offensive ones, I think you could agree with that. Oh, I'm thinking of 2 of them. The one was, little baby arm bar, and then he went into his spin move, and Spence kind of buckled. That was kinda tough to see. OG has a reputation for bowling guys over. Probably that's more of a reputation call. I didn't know Tony Brothers made that call. Hmm. And then the next one was the hit ahead pass from Scottie, where it did look like OG. Yes, he had that arm extended, but as did I believe it was Spence on him again, had that arm extended as well. OG had a fistful of jersey too. Maybe that's why they called it. I thought it was just like play on, 2 guys going up to get the ball. It's wide receiver DB stuff. That was the second one. I didn't see the third one. I don't know what you're referring to, but um, I'm not sure if that was. I can see why each of these things would be called. You don't want them to come in succession. But this game, the Raptors got picked apart by tremendous play by Luka early and then just incredible shot making. The Raptors found their way and honestly, they got to play a pretty aggressive brand of defense down the stretch that they weren't hamstrung by the reffing, I didn't think. And yeah, I wouldn't put this game on the refs or anything like that. It's just sometimes you lose a game and they found a style down the stretch, but they also lost Pascal Siakam, who Siakam has been by magnitudes, an order of 10, right? Of he's been the best half court motivator for the Raptors' success this season. It's not close, and they lost him, and you have to be able to score in the half court, and they had some things go right down the stretch, but they didn't have the juice, and it's tough. But yeah, I understand. Everyone's frustrated with refs a lot of the time. Every team. Why wouldn't you be? These guys make calls and they go against your team. It's like, damn, I didn't think that was a foul. And now you've, implicated my team in some sort of thing. It's tough. Anyway, once again, Pascal Siakam, strained groin. Kim Birch was out for this game with a sore right knee. Fred VanVleet was out for this game with lower back stiffness. We'll see if any of that shakes up. We'll see if, Ron Harper Jr., who is on assignment in the G League, well, I guess he's on a 2-way, so it doesn't count as assignment. Justin Champagny is on assignment. We'll see if either of those guys come up with Pascal's looming absence. We'll see what happens. Thanks for tuning in with me. It's it's been a slice. Get better soon, Pascal and Fred and Cam and anybody who's feeling bad out there. Even you, listener. Maybe your knees swollen. Maybe you got gout or something like that. Anyway, thanks for tuning in with me. I've been Samson Folk. Whether you got into this in the morning or at night, have a blessed day and goodbye.